Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is John, or Last Frontier Bricks, and this is my review of the LEGO Marvel X-Men XJet based off of Marvel Studios X-Men 97. It is set number 76281, comes with 359 pieces, including 4 figures, and retails for $85. A price that, for this size of set, and for what you get in the set, has made it quite possibly the most controversial LEGO Marvel set ever made, but we'll get to that later on in the video. The box art shows off the XJet in all its glory, along with all 4 of your figures, and I do like the X-Men 97 style box art in the top left corner. Top of the box art, you see it has the usual Marvel comic book style logo, design on the box, along with seeing the Wolverine figure, which I can already tell is at least slightly different than the Wolverine figure we got in the Marvel Series 2 figure line, in the fact that, with the exception of just the regular skin, there is no arm printing. Taking a look at the back end box, you can see most of the play features, including in the opening back and cockpit, and the fact that this set includes both the new stud shooters and the spring-loaded shooters. So honestly, I think that's something I don't think I've seen in a set before. Nothing going on the sides of the boxes, and nothing going on the bottom either. This has the 2 push tabs, so you will have to damage the box in order to get it open. So let's see what all we've got in here. Alright, we'll at the instruction manual. We'll take a look at that in just a second. That is a rather large sticker sheet for a set with not even 400 pieces, I will say that. And then let's see, we got a couple large pieces off by themselves. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 decently sized bags of parts. So, taking a look at the instruction manual. Unfortunately, I think they've gotten to where they've cleaned up the CGI rendering of the sets. I haven't seen any bad looking ones in a while. Although this, again, I've also been wondering if they've just dropped the CGI rendering entirely and have gone back to just pictures of the set. In fact, I won't mind that either. Once again, then add about paper bags with a set with no paper bags whatsoever. Then just jump straight into the build. Let's see, there's your list of parts, and no advertisements for any other sets. Maybe that's because this is the only X-Men set in this wave of Marvel sets, and actually the first X-Men set that we've gotten in, I believe, in about a decade, which is kind of weird because the last set that we got for the X-Men was an XJet, although it also came with a buildable Sentinel. So that's everything in the box. We'll go ahead and jump into time lapse for this set, starting right now. Alright, the build is done. That took about an hour or so, give or take. Still haven't quite figured out where all the $85 price tag comes from. But hopefully I'll be able to figure it out once I do the breakdown of the set, which I will do starting with those 4 figures. So starting off, we have to start off with the quintessential X-Man, the Wolverine. He's also the first one you put together in this set. As I mentioned, just taking a look at the box, this version does not have arm printing, unlike the one from the Marvel Series 2 line. Other than that, I'm honestly not sure if there's any difference between the two. It does seem like the same dual. Actually, taking a look at this, it's not the helmet's not actually dual molded. I think it's not. Yeah, take a look inside. It's not actually dual molded. It's the black is just painted on. Although I will say that it was painted on rather well. Here's what earned his face looks like underneath the mask, and he does come with an alternate face. Unfortunately, they don't come with a hairpiece for that alternate face because that alternate face he clearly isn't wearing the mask. His torso print torso print looks pretty good. But and the lines for the muscles, the coloring, the belt, that all looks good. The one thing I don't really like is the usual miscoloration on the legs when it comes to the yellow. Oh, I don't know what's going. I don't know what's going on, but it's been going on for years. And then some that a lot of times the coloring is just a shade or two too light. We know Laker was better than this. They were doing better than this at a time where they were on the verge of going bankrupt, and now uh, they're they're doing worse, even though they're making more money than ever. So yeah, don't really know what's going on. Here's what the back printing looks like. Like I said, it's your regular Wolverine with the exception and of no arm printing, like in the Marvel Series 2 line, but he looks pretty good. But anyway, also they're for his claws, they're using the same one in pieces that they've been doing since Wolverine first showed up in a Lego set. But yeah, for Wolverine, he's pretty basic, but they didn't really need to change up the design anyway. And next up, in the order that the set has you make them, we have Magneto. No, this is the very first Magneto I've gotten a hold of. The only other one being in the Wolverine and Deadpool's helicopters set. So actually, he did show up in the other XJet set, that the last X-Men set that showed up. But this one is, as I said at the beginning of the video, is based off his appearance in X-Men '97, of which this makes for a really, really good representation of that. I think the one thing I'm a little disappointed about is that they went with the hairpiece and not the helmet. In all fairness, he doesn't really use the helmet all that much in the show, but it does make its appearance. But it does make its appearances. Is the face looks pretty good. The hairpiece is rather well. He does have a second angrier face. And now that we got the hairpiece off, we can lift up the cape. See what the back print looks like. It's pretty basic, but it looks pretty good. The cape piece is the newer, softer cloth piece with only one hole, so it was so easier to put on than the two holes. The giant M on the front looks good. No leg printing. No all arms are bare. And he's got the purple gloves and his accessory. The only figure to have accessories, with the exception of Wolverine, is a metal disc for him to float around on. It's made out of three pieces, your usual 2x2 circular plate, and then two of the 1x2 half circle tiles with jumpers on it. That way, Magneto can just sit on the middle. Oh, I'm pretty sure it was the X-Men, the original X-Men animated show. Oh, that started him off with the flying discs, and so it makes sense to have that return. I was actually kind of surprised as to find that out, that the original X-Men trilogy were the first one to basically have Magneto fly, and I actually just learned that he flew in that. He used that ability to fly by manipulating Earth's magnetic field. I always thought he flew because he had like special made steel-toed boots. Nope, kind of crazy. But yeah, that's your Magneto. Nothing too crazy going on, but he looks pretty good. And for figure number 3, we have Cyclops. So actually, he's a pretty good version as well. Interesting choices for hairpiece. I'm not sure if it fits really well, and plus it might be a bit dark for what you see in the show. Oh, believe it or not, he actually does have a second face, although it's nothing too crazy. Like for the and like basically the only thing is basically changing the line for the mouth. On the first face it's in a bit of a smirk or smile, while the secondary face is a bit more serious. Also, take a look at the back. You can see the back end where you can see like the whole harness and belt flows pretty seamlessly from the front and back. I think the one thing I think would have changed, I personally would have changed with this figure. I've seen other people say the same thing. Is that they feel like the hip piece should have been yellow instead of blue, and I will say I do agree with that. But other than that, nothing too crazy going on with Cyclops here, but he's pretty accurate to what you see in the show. And for the fourth and final figure, I think this is the standout figure. That is the very first Lego physical appearance of Rogue. So she uses the 2012 Black Widow hairpiece, but as you can see, they did manage to get the white stripe in her hair. That is fantastic. The face print is basically the same usual female face print they like to give her the superhero figures, although she does have the green headband wrapped around, and she does have a much more serious face. Take a look at the back print, nothing too crazy going on. The front print, on the other hand, looks really good. Looks really good, with the exception that you can tell that the yellow is once again a shade or two too dark and too weak. It doesn't match up with the legs and hands, but other than that, it looks really good. You can kind of see the X-Men logo up there, or on the left side. The chest belt looks good. The printing for the jumps goes pretty seamlessly to the hips and legs. No arm printing to speak of, but I don't think it really needed any. Other than that, she looks. Other than the miscoloring of the yellow on the torso, this is about as good of a Rogue figure from the X-Men show that you could ask for. So that is all your figures. Let's go ahead and move on to the XJet. And here is your XJet. I will say, starting off, one thing that this thing had going for it once I finished it, I realized that this thing was a good deal longer than I thought it was going to be. I honestly thought the length would have been right about, the cutoff point would have been right about here. So it is the full wing and tail section bigger than what I thought it would be. Not as crazy big, not that much crazy the difference, but it is a pretty good difference. I will say I have messed around with this thing a little bit. I will say the switchability on this thing is pretty solid, and I do like the fact that, with the exception of these studs back here, these and a few studs and the main in the main fuselage section, this thing is basically completely studless on top. That seems actually pretty solid. I actually really like that. It's super seamless. It's, you notice that they actually use the same piece for both the cockpit section and the rear section, and just the cockpit section is in the transparent red. And fortunately, mine actually, with the exception of like some like there isn't like any scratches on it. It seems to me more like just some smudges on it. So that is pretty good. And you can see the cockpit opens up pretty wide, and you take a look. You can see some printed control panels along the side of the cockpit, and a control. And along with a control stick. And let me get this out of the way. Yeah, another sticker in front of the control sticks, and you can see, apparently they got Magneto in their sights. Along with that, you can see some stickers alongside in the midsection, with the X-Men logo on both sides. Open up the back, you'll see that there are two more seats, so you can have all 4 characters in your XJet, and once again, more sticker control, and I actually like this little detail. They basically have a readout of the XJet. Behind this little transparent blue screen, so it kind of looks like it's almost a holographic display. I actually really like that. Underneath, you notice that there are some floodlights on the bottom and a pair of the new style stud launchers that fire off just fine. Back behind the engines, you'll notice that this thing also has spring-loaded shooters. I actually don't find it in a lot of vehicles that have both the stud launchers and spring-loaded shooters. So that's actually rather unique. Also, you notice that they have just these little build suction ends underneath, so it just fits. So the jet sits on the ground just fine without any landing gear. Back here, in this section, you have to open this up a little bit in order to access, but you have a couple of cargo containers that can be removed. One of them can hold literally every single one of your extra shots for the stud launcher, and apparently the other one is actually technically for Wolverine. So you can take if you want him in the cockpit, you can just take off his claws, pop him in there, and he is good to go. So yeah, way to have Logan in the XJet without his claws getting in the way. Yeah. Also, some interesting piece usage here. The main section of the wings actually uses the large the tail fin for Lego's usual large passenger jets. So interesting piece usage here. We also notice that the main body the jet uses some rather large pieces of as well. So that's basically the entirety of your XJet. And let's move on to my final thoughts. What I think of this set. So, what do I think of this set? Well, long story short, it's pretty good. It is pretty good. The figure section is pretty solid. It does have some of the more focused characters on the X-Men 97 series. The jet itself is pretty good. And like I said, it is a bit bigger than what I thought it would be, so that it does make me happy. However, much like everyone else, I really don't see how LEGO is able to justify this set at an $85 price point. It's kind of nuts. Like, I get that there are some large pieces in here. Maybe a lot of the pieces are in that X-Men dark blue for the first time. But I just don't see it. I just don't see the value here. This is like, I'd say $50, $60 max as it is. They wanted to go 85. I would have gone at least add 2 more figures. Whereas my 2 choices would probably be Jean Grey and Gambit. And yes, those 2 also have some pretty are also a big focus on the show. But another thing is that I've heard a lot of people say that this should have come with a buildable Sentinel, and I absolutely agree with that. Adding that in would have definitely helped justify the $85 price point. But as it is, I just don't see it. I just don't see the value. I don't see why this thing costs $85. Like I said, this should be at least 50, 60. And seriously, it's just kind of crazy that this thing costs $85. Especially when you take into account, say, for this guy here, the Avengers Quinjet, you get a much larger vehicle, much more piece-heavy vehicle, plus a display stand, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 figures in total. That's one more figure than the XJet, a much larger build, much more substantial build, plus a display stand. And again, it's only $15 more. Or you have the XJet, which has nearly 800 pieces, and 5 figures, $400. Or the XJet with only 4 figures, and about 360 pieces at 85. What's going on here? I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense to me. I can't see where the extra. I can't see how this is only $15 less than this. I just don't see it. Again, the value is just, it's mind-boggling. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. None of this is adding up. So please do yourself a favor. Do not buy this at retail price. If you're just buying it by itself, I would suggest either do what I did and have this set add up to a gift of purchase that you're heavily interested in, or if you're a Lego VIP, use some of those VIP points to knock down that price, because it's just not worth $85, not by a long shot. So that is my review on the X-Men XJet. Thanks for joining me for it. If you guys enjoyed it, you know what to do. You can check out some more of my content on the end screen in just a few seconds. Hit like, subscribe, and all that stuff. And I'll see you all in the next video. Later, everybody.